Now, the views and opinions expressed during RealBlackTalk.com.
Yeah, it makes me look up in the air, right?
Right. Tommy, my name is Steve Helfer, and the show is The Smoking Section. And I'm very pleased tonight to have a gentleman by the name of Tommy Priester. Do you pronounce it Priester?
Priester.
Priester with a long E.
Long E. Yeah.
Long E. And Tommy has been a teacher at the Boston School of Herbal Studies for, I don't know, how long? 15 years? That long?
I think it's 13 years now.
13 years. And the reason I know that is because I took a class with Tommy in shamanic journeying,
Right.
plant journeying.
Journeying to the plants.
And at that class, we used tobacco in a very, I guess you might say, ceremonial way. And Tommy explained to us at the class that he is, at least at that time, was what I believe he called a follower of the Red Road.
Yes, the Native American path.
Of religiosity. I like to use that term, religiosity.
Yeah, that's a good word.
People like to use the word spiritual, but I tend to find that a little overused these days.
Right.
And Tommy, can you tell us a little bit about your involvement with the School of Herbal Studies and what it is that you the areas that you are responsible for as a teacher there?
So I've been teaching with Madelon since 2002, and I guess both Madelon and I have our favorite things to teach.
Yes.
And so as an instructor there, I teach the herbs for digestion, and I teach I teach ceremony.
Yes.
And I teach respect for the plants. I also teach people how to make flower essences of the plants. That's an energetic medicine. As well as teaching about the endocrine system and the different, specifically the actions of herbs related to the organ systems in the body, how to use the herbs, how to make those herbs into what we call medicine, or remedies, and how to help other people with health issues.
And but with the Red Road, what percentage of your work with the school is, let's say, involved with that as opposed to what you might call non-indigenous people's herbal? You know, because Madelon is not. I don't know if she follows the Red Road or.
Well, no, but for me it can't be separated.
Yes.
So I see everything from or through that lens of spirit is involved with everything.
Right.
Whether you want to call it God, earth-based spirit, whatever. So for me, all of the plants are alive. They all have consciousness. And so when we use the plants and when I teach from my perspectives, I always bring that into every discussion. One of the things that I love to teach is how to do ceremony with the plants. And that encompasses tobacco, sage, sweetgrass, cedar, and
those are do you prefer Native American or American Indian, or do you see them as being equal terms?
Well, I mean, it's easily referred to in our culture as Native American, but in truth, it's the first people, or indigenous people. Indigenous people are the people that were here before other people came and kicked them out.
Yeah.
So I know the Canadian Native Americans want to be called the first peoples.
Right.
But for me, it's,
Is it important to you, for example, if I refer to them as American Indians and, because I know that now there is a kind of suggestion, certainly on the part of society, to refer to them as Native Americans. I don't see a big difference. They refer to themselves often as American Indian, I believe.
Yes.
Or some of them do, or some of them don't.
Right. The term Indian is not correct because they're calling them people from India.
Right.
the term
Right.
Indian, so because of their particular dark skin, so that's not correct. So Native American is more correct because they're the native peoples that were here first.
Well, is there something more correct than Native American in your lexicography, lexicology?
For indigenous people, first people of the Americas, or indigenous people of the Americas is how I've heard native people want to be
I
addressed.
see. Well, I've been a tobacco rights advocate for many years. I question a lot of the science that is being propagated against tobacco. I question a lot of it. I question a lot of the political actions that have been taken against smokers and tobacco companies. And for myself, tobacco has always been, for most of my life, a friend and a comforter during times good and bad. And I see it as the studies that I've done indicate to me it's been going on for 8,000 years in this country. Native Americans revered it, used it in their councils, used it ceremonially, also used it throughout the day, or often, is from what I understand. So when I took your shamanic class and you used tobacco, I was very excited. Can you comment on some of the things I said? Do they resonate with you, or?
Oh yeah, all of that's true. So I brought today a tobacco tie, and I don't know where the camera is.
Yeah, well, I guess that's as good as we can do, right?
Okay.
We can't. I suppose. Wait a second, Tommy. We have a new studio here, and it's got some capabilities that I'm just trying out tonight.
Oh, excellent.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to camera 2, and we should look at camera 2, and this will probably be, aha, isn't that much better?
Yeah. Beautiful.
Why don't you hold it, and maybe you can tell us a little.
So,
now you're not in the picture. That's the only problem with this.
This is a South American tobacco tie. And this is a traditional way of taking the tobacco.
I'm going to go back to the other camera.
Yep.
And then, okay, that's it.
Excellent.
South American tobacco tie.
Right. And so this is how they traditionally would store tobacco. They put it into a braid, which helps to keep it together and keep it preserved. And then they would rough it up and break it up and roll that or put that into a pipe. Typically, it would be smoked in a pipe versus rolled in paper, because the original tobacco didn't have paper.
No, that's for sure.
They might have had corn husks
Right.
to roll it in, but they wouldn't have been rolled in paper. So they traditionally used pipes. And
In
all kinds
South
of
America,
pipes.
but from what I understand, or at least from some ethnograph that I perused, in Central America, they often use things like cigarettes. I mean, but not with paper.
Right, right,
You know, there was the pipe, there was the paper, there was the cigar.
right. And so the cigar is rolled up in a leaf, right?
Yes.
It's not in paper. The cigarettes typically were going to be rolled up in corn husks.
I see. Yes, in Central America, at
Yeah,
least from what
and
this
even in the
ethnograph-
Americas.
Right.
And in North America, the use of a pipe was very, very common.
In
Very
North
common.
America.
Yes, for at least the last 1,000
Now,
years.
what the Indian or the native peoples, according to what I read again, and I haven't done extensive reading, it seemed to me they would never have a council without the pipe.
That's true. And tobacco was one of many herbs that were in that pipe in a combination.
Is that right? I didn't know
formula.
that. Oh,
Yes.
so it was complicated formula.
Well, there would be, depending on the reason for the smoking of the pipe, would also depend on what's put into it. But there is almost always an herb or 2 or 3 that were in the pipe to counteract any of the lung effects of nicotine and tar.
Which could be a little bit hard on the lung.
Exactly. So there's always healing herbs mixed in, and today they call it kinnick, which is a herbal combination, and there'll often be willow bark in there, and willow bark is a natural aspirin. They'll often be, which is very relaxing when you smoke it.
Really?
Very relaxing, very calming. It's also a pain reliever. There could be sumac leaves in there to help the immune system. So if it's in the times when the flu is around and stuff like that, there'll be sumac leaves. There'll be plantain leaves, colt's foot, which is an expectorant, so to help get things up
Well,
out of the
tobacco is an expectorant in and of itself, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
People cough, and they often get a lot of phlegm out.
Right.
That they,
Right.
if they didn't smoke, would not the body would not rid itself of it, and it might do a lot more harm than if you smoke and rid yourself, which an expectorant is.
Right. So there's let's compare modern tobacco to original tobacco. So here's an original tobacco leaf.
So you would call that? Should we go into the camera? So let's just, or not
I
necessary.
don't think it's necessary. This is a dried tobacco leaf. This is what tobacco looks like off of the plant. So I thought I'd bring that in because
That's wonderful. Let me see it.
I had some hanging in my basement.
I just want to go to this camera really quick because it does look, this is just so wonderful.
Yeah, it's great.
Does it have an odor? Not much.
Not much. If you were to smell this, which is that rolled up and preserved.
Yes, and this is a tobacco tie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it almost looks like a tie, right? Oh, nice. This smells more like a cigar, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Has a wonderful aroma.
And then there's this, which this is kind of fun. I don't know if the camera will pick this up, but those are tobacco seeds.
Oh boy, I don't think so. Those are very, very small. They look as small as the proverbial mustard seed.
Yeah. So this is homegrown, just like that big leaf.
You grew this?
A friend of mine did. Captured in, give that a smell.
I'm so excited. Well, it doesn't have it doesn't have a very strong aroma.
Right.
I mean, it smells like it smells like a lot of grasses or herbs. I think that don't. I mean, I suppose there are herbs and grasses that have strong aromas and others that don't. This smells like one that doesn't.
Right. Now reach your hand in the bag and just crunch a little bit of it, and then smell it again.
I would imagine this would release all of the. It still, to me, smells very similar to a mild grass smell.
Yeah. Nope. That's tobacco.
And is that the same kind of tobacco as that?
This is more of a Hopi tobacco.
Mm-hmm.
It's a much smaller plant. Grows in a very dry climate. And this
Southwest.
was Hopi ceremonial tobacco. The plant only gets about this tall.
Yes.
So the thing about tobacco these are organic, and I don't know that this is organic, but these are organic, and this American Spirit is organic.
Right.
And the difference between these and modern tobacco is legally the companies that produce tobacco can put up to 1,000 chemicals in tobacco that cause addiction.
Yes.
And that also cause illness.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really grateful to American Spirit.
Can I have that package for just a second? I want to do a quick one here. I mean, everybody knows American Spirit. It's a pretty
So
popular.
that's their organic roll your own tobacco.
Right.
And like I was saying, I'm really grateful to American Spirit for having this available, because without them, it's very hard to find organic tobacco.
Right.
And when I work with people that smoke on a regular basis as an herbalist, and I make up tobacco blends.
Oh my gosh, really?
And I use organic tobacco mixed with other herbs, and we make them a roll your own mix.
Yes.
And invariably, many of their symptoms from smoking chemicalized tobacco start to go away.
Right.
And the strength of the addiction of tobacco is probably 80% driven by the chemicals that are put in tobacco.
Right.
And those same 80% of those chemicals also are the causative factors of disease.
Right. Right.
So tobacco in and of itself is an anti-parasitic plant.
Now you mentioned that to me over the phone. Now when you say anti-parasitic, that sounds to me like you're going to smoke or you're going to chew or you're going to take tobacco in an enema, which I think was done
Right.
in
Right.
Native Americans.
Yeah.
Then it's going to expel what? I mean, parasites?
It will help to kill or expel worms, parasites. Parasites can be microscopic and they can
really?
be really big.
Yes.
They can be tapeworms, pinworms, all different kinds. Interestingly enough, I went to a Sundance with the Cree Ojibwa people in Canada.
Ojibwa.
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 Yeah.
Okay.
And when I was there, the very first one I went, I was just an observer.
Mm-hmm.
And my best friend was dancing, and he wasn't a smoker. And so it was really, really mosquito-ridden forest.
Right.
And I'm watching as he's dancing, and he's swatting, and he's swatting, and he's swatting, and the people next to him are dancing, and they're dancing, and they're chanting, and they've got their feathers, and what I came to realize that all the people that weren't swatting were smoking cigarettes.
I see.
And this herb keeps parasites from biting us.
Oh, really? So you could consider a mosquito a parasitic
Yes,
creature?
absolutely. Anything that feeds off of us.
I was thinking, so a bat would be a parasitic creature, although bats normally don't feed off you.
No, bats don't feed off of people, but anything that bites you feeds off of you.
I see, like a tick.
And those ticks, mites.
Like our famous, well, do you think, and this is a far out question, because I know you also do some specializing in Lyme disease.
Yes, I
do. Do you think smokers might have less of a tendency to get Lyme disease, somewhat less of a tendency than non-smokers?
I actually do think there's something to that. I have a very dear friend who was a smoker, and his wife got Lyme disease. Now, through her, he's been exposed to Lyme because it's transmitted from person to person.
Oh, I didn't realize that. So it's communicable among people.
Exactly. But through her, and he lives on the same land with ticks and everything, and he's had tick bites.
Yes.
But he's never had a symptom.
Right.
Not once.
Right.
And he smokes. Now, other people that don't smoke, and I'm not saying to go out and smoke.
Right. You're not...
But it's sort of an interesting side effect of cigarettes being anti-parasitic.
Have you noticed
tobacco.
this before, vis-a-vis Lyme disease? This effect, that...
Well, with the mosquitoes, for sure. Many years ago, I noticed that the mosquitoes didn't bite people that smoked.
Right.
And it wasn't that they were smoking in that moment. It was that because tobacco, the chemicals of tobacco go directly into the blood via the lungs. That's how that works.
Yes.
And the blood carries those chemicals of tobacco to every cell in the body. And every cell in the body now has anti-parasitic chemicals stored in those cells. And mosquitoes don't want to bite us because we don't taste good.
Are they made less inclined to bite us?
Well, definitely much less inclined.
Right.
So my friend would have 15 or 20 bites all across his back, and the guy next to him would have one.
I see. Now, also, but people
It's
do...
fascinating.
People have always taken tobacco also orally, like chewing it.
Right.
Or even if you smoke a cigar, for example, you take in some of the elements in tobacco through your mucous membranes.
That's right.
So
it's called sublingual.
Oh, sublingual?
Mm-hmm. Sublingual absorption.
I mean, taking something in other than through the lungs, which
Right.
I assume is probably a lot easier than on the lungs. Now, just a political, because I'm very involved in political issues around tobacco, that the FDA is beginning to put pressure on American Spirit not to say that they have no additives or that they are organic. And do you know why the FDA is doing that?
Yeah, it's lobbying from the chemicalized tobacco companies.
Oh, I don't know,
one.
Tommy. I'm not so sure about that. According to what they're doing is according to the FDA, what they're doing is because by American Spirit saying that they have no additives, and in the case of their organic brand, that it's organic, it's implying to the public without saying that it's a healthier or safer thing to smoke, and the FDA says that they can't do that, that there is no evidence for them to support that, so the FDA is beginning to put pressure on them to do that.
Yeah, but
I mean, I think it's a terrible thing.
organic, roll your own,
Right.
additive-free, natural tobacco. Natural American Spirit. It doesn't say anywhere on here that this is better for you.
No, but the FDA says simply by saying to the American public that it's additive-free and organic, the FDA is saying that American Spirit is deceiving the public. That's just an example of the politics that surround tobacco in the United States.
Right. Well, if they're doing the same thing with organics and organic food. They're trying to make it so we can't label things GMO, and this is all political. It's all a corruption scam, as far as I'm concerned. It's a shame.
Yes. Well, I mean, that's one of the things Cambridge Citizens for Smokers' Rights tries to fight. And now, what do you not partake of tobacco in terms of smoking it or using the let's say burning it at your ceremonies?
We use tobacco as a ceremonial tool. Mm-hmm. And so we do what's called a pipe ceremony. And the pipe is a sacred pipe, and it's for praying.
Yes.
So when we put the pipe together, it's in a sacred way. We put the tobacco into the pipe. And again, it's not just tobacco, it's a mixture of herbs.
Right.
And each pinch of the tobacco is prayed into and then put into the pipe. Each pinch of tobacco represents one of the sacred directions.
Which are 4 in number.
Well, there's 4 directions.
Right.
And there's the earth, and there's the sky, and there's spirits.
Yes. Right.
And then there's what the Lakota call Hochoka, which is the sacred center of all of us, and that's the indwelling spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And so the tobacco is prayed into, and then the pipe, when it's time, is passed from person to person.
Yes.
And everyone partakes of that, who's ever willing or wanting to, and it gets passed all the way.
I know that in Cambridge, when they passed one of the anti-smoking ordinances, there was a provision in it that when used for a legitimate religious reason, mm-hmm. And it had to be actually in a church or something of that nature, I think, then that would enjoy First Amendment protections as the exercise of free religion.
And that's awesome, because it should enjoy that.
And that became about because of a young man who was studying at the divinity school at the time. Do you know who that person was, by any chance?
No, I don't.
I don't. I mean, this had to be, this was probably about 25 years ago.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't know.
I thought it might be you. But
Wasn't me.
Evidently not you.
Nope. I'm an advocate for many things, and freedom of expression, freedom of smoking is really important. Being able to have this ability to speak and be on TV and do what you're doing is also a beautiful freedom.
I agree with you. I agree that a lot of people complain about the situation in the United States in a lot of ways, and I'm sure there are many, many ways to complain about it, but I do think there is a respect. In most cases, it's always it's always a right that we have that is always endangered. I think it's in a constant state of endangerment.
That's
but
right.
We do have free speech here if we are willing to exercise it. We have to exercise it and be careful that it does not and fight off any kinds of attacks on it. And but we do enjoy it. Like on this program, you and I can say anything we want, except the only thing we can't do on this program here is advocate for the violent overthrow of the United States government.
Well, yeah.
That's called
Right.
sedition, and that's
Right.
the only thing that CCTV asks us. In fact, tells like I cannot tell you that I'm unhappy with the tobacco ordinance in Cambridge, and that I want you and a few other people and
Well,
I
that wouldn't be a good idea.
to go beat up the city councilors.
No.
We can't do that.
We don't do that. No.
And I don't really feel like doing it,
Right.
although sometimes I
Right.
do. But anyway, so I mean, because, but so this idea that tobacco is a scourge, what would you say to anti-smoking groups who say tobacco in and of itself is a scourge? Some people say, Hitler is very famous for having said supposedly that this was the revenge of Native Americans on Europeans, introducing them to tobacco, which spread throughout the world.
First of all, tobacco's been around for as long as people have been around.
Now, how long is that?
People have been around, now they say, tobacco was probably a plant before people were even here.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But people have been around for at least a minimum of 50,000
Oh,
years.
really? Okay.
This go around.
Yes. Oh, this go around. Okay.
So we've been here, and the indigenous peoples have always known of this as their medicine.
Yes.
It's one of their most important medicines. So let's talk about it as a medicine.
Mm-hmm.
We know it's anti-parasitic.
Right.
One of the most powerful healers of wounds is tobacco.
Oh, right. Right. You mean to use as a poultice?
Yes, you can. So I'll give you an example. In Dancing in the Sundance, the Sundance
Tommy,
is...
I want you to, I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
But, there's a phenomenon that the West is very concerned about. It's called time. Now, you see, we've only got 20 seconds left.
Oh, that's too bad. Well, tobacco heals burns, wounds, cuts, bruises, scrapes. Chew it up, put it directly on the wound.
Tommy, I hope someday we can have a program on poultices.